All right, thank you for joining us this evening for the Artists Exchange, a group created by and for artists to share new work, ideas, and resources and opportunities monthly over a glass of wine or tea, as you prefer. And if you have a glass of wine or tea, I encourage you to raise a glass now for the Artists Exchange 1 year anniversary. Congratulations to Pamela Blotner and all the artists who participated in the first year of the Artists Exchange.
And to Shelley Rugg, who is our magic wizard, and who also is our new executive director at Gallery Route 1. So hooray for her.
Thank you, Pamela. All right. So grab your beverage and join us as we discover the work of two highly acclaimed Bay Area painters, Louise Stanley and Foad Satterfield. I'm Shelley Rugg, the new executive director at Gallery Route 1. For our presentation today, we ask that you please stay muted unless we ask you to unmute. For best viewing, select speaker view from the top right corner of the Zoom viewing screen. We want you to know that we are recording today's presentation for future viewing on our website and YouTube channel. And go to YouTube and follow us. We have a GRO YouTube channel. Now, please join me in welcoming our host, Pamela Blotner, an artist, educator, and curator who lives and works in the Bay Area. She has worked as a sculptor illustrator for the Houston Zoo in Houston, Texas, and the Leatherback Trust Conservation Organization, and as an artist designer for the Human Rights Watch, Physicians for Human Rights, and the UC Berkeley Human Rights Center. Blotner's sculpture and drawings have been exhibited in Europe, Asia, Africa, and the United States. She has taught at a number of universities throughout the US. She is co-curator and founder with Me Preckler of Artists Beyond Boundaries. Please welcome Pamela Blotner.
Thank you, Shelley. That was very, very gracious. And so now I get the pleasure of introducing Louise Stanley, Louise Stanley, and Foad Satterfield. I have known Lulu for almost 20 years when I first came, but Foad is new to me. So that makes things even more interesting. First, these are two artists who share a deep love of painting. Some of you have asked, what do they have in common? A lot more than one would think. They also have a fascination with the physical, mythical, and mysterious landscape around them. They're also neighbors living across the street from each other in the Emeryville Artists Cooperative, which makes it convenient for them to trade critiques, which they like to do. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Louise first, Lulu, and her own artist statement is so good that I'm going to crib from it, which is not very professional, but I am. Her work, quote, follows in the tradition of history and narrative painting, using myth and allegory as tools for documenting current and fictitious events. She likes to explore the human condition, modern day romance, and political issues. Among the recurring themes in her paintings, Lulu lists voyeurism, a longing to be someplace else, and a sense of places and events remembered. Humor, she says, is the catalyst and a bridge to darker, more troubling issues. And let's have Lulu begin now, and you'll know just what she means by humor and the troubling issues.
I thought I'd give you a little background of how I got here. And Pamela has made it easy for me because she lopped off a couple minutes of my talk, so that's good. I look a little yellow, but Anyway, okay. I grew up in Southern California, South Pasadena, and my dad was a painter. Among other things, he built violins, and our whole family painted and played music. And every weekend, we'd go for a Sunday drive and we'd paint. We'd go to a location nearby. It was Southern California and it wasn't all grown up yet. And I learned all my lessons from my dad, just asking him questions. And he taught me, he said, if you want to paint something, find out how it's made and why it looks the way it does. And then at least you have some questions to ask if you get stuck. At the time, South Pasadena is very close to San Marino, which is the home to the Huntington Library and Museum. And it was free. And in the summer, we used to bicycle over and visit Pinky and Blue Boy and their book collection. And I fell in love with illuminated manuscripts after visiting there. Also, they had period rooms, and we used to pretend we lived there, and that those were our homes. And I think I've always had a love for museum settings. Later on, I took tours to Italy, and we would visit many period rooms, and usually they're opulent, but they're fraying at the edges. And so I became interested in looking at art and sort of using that as source. I was troubled by the nude baby in the winter and why everybody's clothed and not baby Jesus. And Leo Steinberg explains that. But I was also sort of embarrassed by Mrs. Siddon's posing as the muse. I thought that was a little presumptuous of her. And my dad introduced me to the regionalists, Thomas Hart Benton, Grant Wood, and Reginald Marsh, who were much more useful to me. I went to a Brethren college, Laverne College in Laverne, California, and it was a church college. I've got missionaries in my family, and it's the skeleton in my closet. And my second year there, I got a motor scooter, and I would take it over to Scripps College for Women and take life drawing. And the dean of women pulled me into the office, and she said, we're getting complaints about the nudes on your dorm walls. And at that point, I realized that art was going to be it sealed my fate. It was going to be my religion. And then in 1966 or so, 65, I moved to the Bay Area, and I discovered California College of Arts and Crafts. And I was then finally with my own kind. And Arts and Crafts at the time was a drawing school. And the going word was authenticity. And your mark had to be your own. And that was my big problem in those years, was trying to figure out who I was in paint. And I knew how to draw academically, but they were doing all this stuff out of their heads and sort of, well, they were all on drugs. I hadn't gotten there yet. But anyway, I got together with 3 women, and after our seminars, we would go up into the graveyard behind the school and take our paints. And we decided we were going to break all the rules of our teachers, and we were going to do bad art and paint as bad as we could. And I figured maybe I could find myself by starting at the beginning. And at the time, it was the end of abstract expressionism. And you had, if you wanted to be a big time serious artist, you couldn't use color, you couldn't use humor, it couldn't be personal, couldn't tell stories. I have my list here. Anyway, let's see, personal stories, and you couldn't use humor. And the only way that we could rebel was to do little tiny illuminated manuscripts and narrative paintings. And it was a way to kind of well, what we were doing was we were reinventing ourselves. And I found that if I worked out of the norm, there was a security and a safety there, because I was not going to be in, but I wouldn't be out either. And then when a few years later, I joined the women's movement, and that really gave me permission to paint out of my own needs. But I think the Bay Area was conducive to that kind of experimentation, because we didn't have an academic, we didn't have a gallery system, at least that didn't include us. I mean, that included us as women. But I think that the whole Bay Area is eclectic in that way. We weren't being watched over by the art market. But so when I was in graduate school, if I saw this painting, I would be horrified that I was doing these paintings. I never wanted to be a true narrative, and I didn't want to get close enough to realism that it would, you know, I was deathly afraid of becoming a photorealist. And I don't think that's a problem now. But so let's see, I got some notes here. Well, the one thing, I have a quote from Donna Mossholder, and she used to say, "You are what you art." And the quest is finding who you are, who you are. And that was a difficulty. But I discovered juxtaposition, as Pamela was saying. I started looking at art history, and I realized I could play off the modern day quotidian with art historical references and myth and allegory. It would sort of upgrade the culture aspect of my work. And I like the idea of painting some mundane situation, kind of dumb, and raising it to a higher level. And then by putting a frame, painting a frame around it, I make it into an object. And that's something I've just been doing recently. But this painting, by the way, is Falling on Hard Times. And this is a villa outside of Venice in Vicenza. And it's full of Tiepolo paintings. And I thought that she's having to do her own laundry. But Archna Horsting came in one day and said, "Where are you going to plug the TV?" And that's when I put the hub down the bottom. I get a lot of help from my friends. Okay, how am I doing on time?
Well, we've got about a minute to go, I think.
Okay, well, a couple things. One year, what kind of clinched it for me was I had a solo show at PS1 and years ago, and Joyce Kozlov came to the opening, and she stood in the middle of the room and raised her voice and said, "God, Lulu, your work is so American." And I thought, Okay, I can live with that. I do Italian masterpieces with an American accent. So these are references to our other artists. This is homage to Duchamp, the bride strip bearer. This is homage to the weeping women, Dora Maar. I think I'm done talking. This is a dream I had, 2 harpies on a dead man. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't figure out what it meant. My sister just said, oh, paint it and you'll figure it out. My mother never liked this painting. I like the harpies. They're nasty.
They are.
This is the dilemma of procrastination. It's called remote access. The muses are waiting for her to get off the computer and go paint. But one thing I was struggling with was painting with acrylic and doing a light source within a dark interior. And this is called Truncus narrabus. Faces, it means faces without noses. This is my process. And the border contains objects I collect in my sketchbooks. And the photographs are looted art. And that down at the bottom are the looters with their van. And these are 2 of my sketchbooks. And I didn't realize it. I put this little tab in the book. It acts like a tongue, and the glasses and the nose make a face. I got lucky.
All right, I believe that's the last one. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, well, I'm going to pass it back to Pamela, who's going to unmute.
I have unmuted. Thank
Great.
you so much, Lulu. And now I'm going to speed up a little bit to introduce Foad Satterfield. And we're very lucky to have him as well. And let's see. Foad is an artist and an educator, and he grew up in the Gulf Coast of Louisiana, where he developed, in his words, an awareness and sensitivity toward the magnificence of the natural world as it is expressed in gentle, verdant seasons, as well as in extreme assertions of its power, as hurricanes and floods. Indeed, water seems to be a leitmotif from Foad's paintings, appearing in both recognizable and abstract forms. So look for them. Probing the mysteries of life, he says, is his own life's inquiry, both an exploration and, as he puts it, his way of cultivating intimacy in this world we inhabit. Did I mention that he's also a poet? Take it away, Foad.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, you can. Okay, great. I want to welcome everyone. I think I know many of you, but those of you who I do not know, I hope to know you in the future. Lulu, thank you so much. That's always comprehensive. It's always a tough act to come after you. But, I was thinking that as you were talking about your family outings, and going up to the library, and, I said, well, in Orange, Texas, where I was born, we didn't really have a museum, and but what we did have is that every Sunday afternoon, we would take these really wonderful drives in the country. My father would drive, my great aunt and myself would be sitting in the back seat, and I believe my sister was with us. I'm not sure. You know, it's so funny because I tell her, I say, Jacqueline, you know, I don't remember you growing up. You know, we grew up in the same house, but that was really one of the most pivotal experiences, I think, for my development. It was these long, leisurely drives under these tree-lined streets in the woods in the country when I was growing up. And I remember, you know, that what was so compelling about it was the variation of textures, of materials, of the quality of light, the reflected light, the shadow, you know, just these things were just, it was almost like I was building a vocabulary in terms of my understanding of the world, but I didn't know that's what was happening then. So I think a lot of ways that was probably my experience to Nature's Library, Nature's great museum, and so, you know, kind of developed in that. And I think another thing that was very important for me in my own development was that I didn't go to kindergarten, okay? And I think as a result of that, I was able to stay home with my great aunt, who basically raised us until we were 7 years old, as I was. And I was able to just to play without any socialization, without any kind of constraints. And I was allowed to be free and just to invent and imagine as a kid. And when I look back now, I think that was really probably the most important formative aspects of my development, which allows me to be here in front of you now, in fact. You know, because I think that, you know, my family gave me an environment that was safe. You know, it was a supernatural love and protection. And I was just able to just be a kid. And but I knew that I would somehow be in the world of inquiry around what is the mystery of life, you know, because I would see it in my own very adolescent way. I would see, you know, we lost pets, and I wondered about death and life, and I saw them born, but I didn't understand it. And then I started to thinking that maybe there's a parallel in what I see in the natural world in terms of, you know, the woods, the trees, the plants, the herbs. My great aunt and I, we would take walks and collect herbs, and so I was very familiar with the earth. And I think this really was probably the beginning. But being an artist or thinking of art, I had no idea what that was. You know, so just fast forward just a little bit. My great aunt, she was a country girl from New Iberia, Louisiana. She only spoke French, and had never gone anywhere actually. And then all of a sudden, she announced that she was going to go on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land. And the family was just really, you know, they were terrified. Oh, by me, she's never gone anywhere. She's never been out as far as Houston, Texas, you know. So she did that, and she was going to stay away for a month. She was going to stay on a month pilgrimage, and she stayed for 6 months. And it was just amazing. So what happened was during that time, she started sending home these steamer trunks full of little artifacts. Religious artifacts, just little black medallions, little trinkets, and I never forget as a kid, I think I was about 9 then, when we opened that trunk and I saw all of these things, it just blew my mind. And I said, wow, this is the world I want to be in. And I think that was my first actually experience with this thing we call art. You know, something well made, and certainly something that had a magic to it, a kind of mysterious quality that could imbue feelings that were much deeper than being able to talk about them, you know. So that was it. And then, of course, you know, I did high school and you know, went to college and hadn't really thought about anything. I really wanted to be a fashion designer because when I lived with my great aunt, she taught me how to sew. And so I could make clothes and I could follow a pattern. And so I wanted to go to New York, but my parents wouldn't have it. So I decided to just go to college, resign myself. And I did. And then I said, well, let's see, now what major am I going to declare? So I said, well, might as well do art, this thing they call art. And that was really my first beginning of training into painting and thinking about a career and a vocation in art and that sort of thing. And so Yeah, okay, we'll just move on here. So basically, this is in my studio, and I'm constantly at this stage, it seems like, archiving and just photographing work. And so this is a process that I'm always stacking, and I'm probably one of the few artists that you might ever know. If you come to my studio, you would never see an art out. It will always be covered by these white boards, because I find that when I'm working on something, I can't have any individual distractions other than the thing I'm working with at the time. Next, please. Now, this is just a little, I'll throw this in. There's a lobby exhibition I'm having now at 475 Sampson Street in San Francisco. And this is important for me because this series, and it's only four large paintings, but these were the last oil paintings that I made. And this was back in 1986. And this was a series that I had produced that was called Sticks and Stones, and just that actually dealt with the materiality of matter, and also how to think about that in relationship to making a painting. And so it was really wonderful for me just to go back into the vault and pull these out, because I hadn't seen these paintings in over 30 years. And so now they are up. If you're ever in San Francisco in the financial district buying stocks and selling stocks and stuff, drop by 475 and take a look at these paintings. And I think because they're so very different, people say, wow, Fuad, I didn't know you did that. Well, we've done a lot of things as makers, as you all know. So we have different series, different phases we go through in terms of our evolution and development. And this was one for me that was very seminal at a particular time. Next, please. And this is also one of the paintings in that show. I think it's 74 by 96 inches. So just to give you a little bit, and I apologize for the clarity of the slide. It's not a very good image. I took it with my phone, so forgive me there. Next, please. Okay, now this is just a little bit about my process. Now what you see here, this is unstretched canvas that's been tacked to the wall that I actually began on the floor, because I started all my large scale paintings on the floor. And this allows me to basically start them off as a gigantic watercolor. And therefore, I don't have any drips. Everything kind of blends in, and I'm using the spray, my spray bottles. I'm pouring water. I'm kind of sloshing around with sponges. I'm walking in it. You'll see footprints and handprints in it. And then once it gets to a place where basically there is nothing but just the actual material itself, not necessarily composition, but just how the materials are moving, then I'm ready to bring it to the wall and look at it to see what's there. And often I will look at these. There is no right upside down or right or left, or, so any direction I put it up, it has to work for me. It has to be this organic thing. Next one, please. Now here, a little more development of the same unstretched painting is 80. I think it's 86 by 84 by 96, and unstretched. And here now I'm starting to see a composition, and it kind of takes me back to a particular theme that I like, which is this lake where I go to, and I just kind of sit. I just sit in, and I'm a meditator. So I believe that observation is one of the seminal properties and faculties of the intuition. And so I'm constantly trying to develop and hone that in a way. So for me, observation, just looking at something, is very important. When I think I've got it to a place where maybe there's a composition here, that's beginning to arrive, then I will stretch the unstretched canvas. So I can kind of see where the finality of it, where the edges might be, and if there's a way that I could sort of let the painting proceed past the picture plane into just the open space. It happens sometimes it doesn't happen. Next, please. Here, obviously the painting is a little more developed, and it goes on and on to where I feel I've probably killed it, But just to give you an idea of how some of my paintings started, and I was asked to define what kind of painting I do, and I think I shared this with Pamela that my paintings are abstract paintings with landscapes in front. So basically that's, I like that. So easy way to kind of explain, because I'm not really sure what it is I'm doing other than I'm trying to make an object that will be energetic, influential, and beautiful, and very enthusiastic in its properties and possibilities to entertain, to enlighten, to offer something to the viewer in a way that it is a kind of a very physical act itself. So that's my goal. Next, please. And this is my fun one. This is my grandson, Cairo, and my son, Kwame, in my studio. And periodically we do painting sessions, and I really enjoy that. Cairo to date makes the best paintings. So, I'm always trying to copy what he's doing. So basically, I'm going to end with that and just open it up. And Pamela, I'll give it back to you, please.
Thank you, Foad. That was great. And I know that most of you here are looking forward to the conversation between the artists, but I would like to ask first if any of you of our audience would like to ask a question of either of the artists. Please feel free. Well, then I'll ask one. Is Susan Stanley your sister?
Yes.
I've heard wonderful things about you.
Oh, good. She'd be pleased. She's a graphic artist at Lawrence Hall of Science, and she draws 8 hours a day on the Wacom tablet. She's illustrating a teacher's manual. I think it's FOSS is the name of it. She draws bugs and birds and wings and plants all day long.
All right.
Science curriculum.
And there she is.
Oh, hi.
Okay, viewing audience, any questions? All right.
I wanted to, I know that they have studios across from each other and they consult with each other all the time. I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, Foad calls me up and he says, come over, you gotta help me. And I go, I don't know that I can help Foad. I can't paint like that. But we seem to have a dialogue. I often look at his paintings first in a narrative way, and the way they hit me, at least when they're done. I saw a wonderful show of his at St. Mary's College, and they were all spread out around the walls. And I felt as if there should be a soundtrack of birds, because it reminded me of places I've been as a kid in the Midwest, visiting my grandmother, catching crawdads down in a little stream covered by trees.
Hey.
I don't know what you could say to that, but
Yeah, no, that's good. No, actually, I think it's really been marvelous that that I've had Lulu within close proximity for me as we work, on our various projects, and often there are places I think that as makers that we hit technical snags.
Right.
There's difficulty around working something out, perhaps, and it's always a nice thing to bring in fresh eyes. So I kind of I won't say utilize Lulu this way, but I certainly am grateful that she is available, that I can call her up and say, Lulu, take a look and tell me what you think about this. Is this working? Because often, we could be so close to something, we can't see it.
right.
And we have so many, little critics on our shoulder and saying, oh, no, that's not it. That's not good. This is not going to do it, and often we have to just find some neutrality somewhere. And so I do have several very close colleagues that I feel very comfortable to be able to discuss these things with. This is not something that everybody I would obviously invite in. And also the other thing is that I think it's important for me, and what I learned is that I don't want just everybody to see work or to comment on work while I'm in process, because that could also be very disconcerting as well. So it has to be someone that I find that I know that will look at the process not in a judgmental way, but in a critical way or technical way, so that we can actually move forward and make this thing manifest in the wholeness, in the fullness that we were intended for this thing to be, which is in this case the object of a painting. You know,
Right.
and that to me really is really what it's all about, and that's where the language that we have developed and are developing, you know, still resides. Do you agree with that, Lulu?
Yeah, well, I think years ago I would have the dilemma of what color shirt should this figure have,
Yes.
or
Oh boy,
what
that's
color
tough.
should I make this floor or whatever. And I call my sister, I go, what color should it be? And she said, I don't know, I can't tell you. I said, just say a color. And she'd go, red. And I go, no, it can't be red. But I think that's the kind of criticism. If it doesn't matter what they say, it helps you decide what it shouldn't be. And I think it's not many artists like to talk about their work and the nuts and bolts doing of it, you know, when you're in the studio and you're wrestling. And yes. I find I grew up painting with my family, painting with my friends. In fact, Linda McDonald stays overnight, and we sit and set up a still life and paint side by side. And just, you know, it's good to have company. It's lonely.
Sure. Yeah, and you know, also I think that you know, my philosophy has been that I'm not afraid to ask for help. You know, because I sort of came to this late, and I realized that there's you know what, 1,400 years of painting history.
Right.
You know, so there's a lot of wisdom. There's a lot of wisdom out there, you know, in terms of just the technical part of it. And then, of course, you know, we bring our own voice to this. You know, we decide early on the kind of sensibility that we want to bring to our work. You know, we choose, in your case, I think you said that, you know, you chose an allegory and history as a point of entry. And for me, it's been, you know, the natural world. But nevertheless, we're still approaching the same goal here.
Right.
You know, and I think that's really where the synthesis is, you know, the nexus, you know, is that, so how do we get there? How do we know when we're getting there and whether it's working or not? That's really, right, you know, the critical thing. And for me, that's what makes this thing we call art so extraordinary, because you can't explain it. You can't really define it. I mean, intellectually you can, but then I think when you define something, you automatically contract it. It gets contracted,
right? You
know, so you want to keep it open. And I think that the freedom that painting allows is that it allows the maker to maintain a sense of expansiveness, you know, in infinitum. Really, I mean, the only constraints would be the constraints they put on themselves in certain things too. So you know, I mean, from the philosophical point of view, I kind of see that as an opportunity, but at the same time as a real tough burden to deal with. You know what I mean? Because you have all this history, all this, you know, that, like I said, these little historians on your shoulder, you know, Caravaggio's there, remember, you know what I mean? You know, they're all there. They just say, you know, and, you know, just tear you apart. No, that probably is another painting for you.
Well, but I actually did that painting, but
did you?
All right. Bombed.
Oh, did you? Yeah. Well, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. That's a tough one. And you know, as you were talking too, I realized in graduate school, my teacher was Paul Georges.
Oh,
you know? Yeah. And he was a rough and tough figurative painter, man. You know, I mean, you know, he'd go to blows with critics. I mean, they were always fighting it out, you know, in these artist forums, and the whole thing of confrontation and, you know, battling, and you know what I mean? It was rough. You know, it was a little too rough for me. I mean, I was a little more sensitive, you know, but nevertheless, so, you know, but for a while I did do giant over life-size figurative paintings, you know. So I understood that. I understood the language of figuration from Georges. And
where
I think
was that?
This was at LSU.
Where?
LSU graduate school.
Oh, LSU.
Yeah,
I
right.
taught there 1 year.
Yeah, I know you told me, and of course his
A good
teacher,
year.
what's the little guy's name? George's teacher. He was from California, and he was the first teacher in graduate school to develop an art design class that became part of the curriculum. I'll think of his name in a minute.
Oh,
Yeah, he was a little guy with Jack Wilkinson.
oh.
Jack Wilkinson. Yes, he developed the first designed curriculum for graduate school in
Really?
yes, and that was in 1950 something.
Oh.
So these guys, I had no idea that they were pioneers in this thing, and so I do have a kind of figurative, background in a
Right.
way. And
Well, you have to start, you start with life drawing.
Yes.
I think it's interesting how many people continue to draw from the figure their whole lives and don't use it in their work.
Yes, right,
At all.
right.
I mean, there's thousands of drawing groups. I was in a group for a while. We met once a month or every other week, Tuesday, and we'd hire a model and just draw. A lot of the artists, you would never see the drawing, the figure drawings in their work, but you never really get there with the figure.
Well, I was over in San Francisco today, and I dropped by Adobe Chadwick, and they were putting up a show, and the owner let me walk through the gallery, nevertheless, and I saw some of my colleagues. He's deceased now, Terry St. John's drawings, pen and ink and brush, ink drawings, and I say, wow, this is so sublime and so beautiful, and of course, then there was one of Terry's paintings, and so it's so nice to see that again. But you're right. I mean, I think that many artists have earned a livelihood working with the figure. You know what I mean? And I think that's a quite notable and noble challenge in one's life. And I think that, but just the discipline of working from a figure, it strengthens the technical facility.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And I believe it or not, in secret, I draw the figure all the time, but I never use the figure.
Right.
But it's part of the, just part of the vocabulary, and so much of the figure I see in nature, in a way, just the forms, the shapes, the abrupt changes, the shifts, the fractures. They're all there. It's all just that kind of juxtaposition and chiaroscuro and light that happens. So,
well, one of the most valuable classes I ever took was from Ralph Borges, and he was a magic realist, real precise. He had a class called sketch class, and we went out on location every week. And we'd go to the Fisherman's Wharf, the zoo. We went to the produce market at 3 a.m. and huddled in sleeping bags and waited for the trucks to come in. And we were to only work in our sketchbook. We couldn't sit and do a large drawing of the whole location, but we had to take notes. And I had a friend who we traded off, like she'd do the light switches and the fans and the light fixtures, and I'd do the chairs and the coffee cups and whatever. And then the assignment was to come back the next week with a large drawing made from our sketches, completely invented. We could take this, we could go out during the week and gather what we needed, what we didn't get. And it taught me how to do research. And the idea that you borrow a chair and you draw it in your sketchbook, but when you put it in the painting, it may need to be in another direction. And you got to figure out how to do that, either conceptually or get a chair, take it outside, turn it so the shadows go in the right direction on the sidewalk, and draw it from there, and then take it back in your studio. But that was so valuable. And I base everything I do on that class. And right before he died, there was a big Oakland Museum, 100th anniversary of Oakland Museum. And one of his paintings was on the wall, and he came to the opening. And I went up to him and I told him, "You've changed my life." And I started sputtering and blubbering, and I could hardly get the words out. And his daughter came after, and she said, "Oh, my dad just loved that."
Right.
So I got
right.
to thank him.
Yes.
Hey, you
Yes.
two. I hate to interrupt. It's just such a lively and enjoyable conversation you're having. But it's time for us to move the program along. But I would like to offer one last opportunity to the audience. If you might have any questions, this is your last chance to bring up a question.
Okay, I had a question. This is for, I don't know how to pronounce your first name. Is it
It's
Foad?
Lulu. It's Lulu. No, it's Foad.
It's Foad.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. Well, I really loved seeing your process. I think that's so important because so many times we see the final piece and we go, "Oh my God, it's so beautiful and perfect. How did somebody get there?" So I love how you're using those, beginning images and then, sort of delving in with your mind and, working here and there and sort of bringing up these different things that you love. So, but one question was, are you working with acrylic or with oil? Or, I know some of your final pieces because I've seen a few. So I think they're just really beautiful and juicy and very exciting. So thank you. And I'm just curious more about your materials.
I'm not going to tell you.
Okay.
I can.
No, I will. I'm just kidding. These are acrylics, yes. Liquid acrylics.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, fabulous. I'm going to pass it to Pamela now to start our artist resources part.
Okay. That was great. Thank you both very, very much. And I will do this quickly, and that's to remind everyone, as though you need it, that the Artists Exchange was created to provide a platform for artists to learn from each other's work and processes and techniques, and to find out about various opportunities for artists. If you have an opportunity that you'd like to share, now is the time. I will just suggest that everyone go and see the Alice Neal exhibition at the DeYoung Museum. Okay, let's see. I know, Lulu, you have some suggestions.
Right. So I just sent a piece in. The DeYoung Museum is having an artist call, and I'll read here. It's in conjunction with the Alice Neal show, and the title of her show is People Come First. And this is pictures of people, and you could go to the site, and it's actually picturesofpeople.artcall.org. And it's going to be a virtual loop on their website. And the due date, they're collecting one piece from everybody until June 24th. And everybody I know is doing it. And they tell you the size. It has to be either a portrait or people doing, look at Alice Neal. And then they want you to write a little blurb about that person, why you did the painting. And that's one thing. And then I am jurying a humor show for the O'Hanlon Center for the Art. And it's in Marin, and it's going to be virtual. It's a digital show, so no hanging of paintings. But the title of the show is It's Okay to Laugh. And the submission deadline is 11 p.m. Sunday, April the 3rd. So it's coming up.
All right. And I put 2 links in the chat to make it easy for people.
Okay, good.
Find that. All right. Did you have anything, Fuad?
Yes, I'd like to recommend the Angela Henderson show, Henderson show at the South Market. This is an extraordinary use of materials over a broad range of space and time, and Angela really focuses. Some of the materials are hair, braiding, metal, wood, paint, but they're just elegant. And I think it's a show worth seeing. It's at South Market, and I believe it's up until April the 8th.
All right, thank you. And I'm going to share a Gallery Route 1 opportunity. We currently have space for new artist members. And so go to the link I'm putting in the chat, and that will take you to the application. And we encourage you to apply to be a member of Gallery Route 1.
Let's give them a brief idea of the wonderful things that will happen to them when they join Gallery Route 1.
Sure. Well, you'll be surrounded by other artists who are working hard, just like you. And you'll have the opportunity to participate in at least 2 shows each year with your own solo exhibition within about 1.5 to 2 years. And all the artist members are in charge of our exhibition program. So it's planned, produced, and installed by the artist members. It's a wonderful gallery in Point Reyes Station where people come from all over the world to visit. And we would really love to have you apply. Thanks.
Thank you, Shelley. And I'll take over from here again because I would love to thank Louise Stanley and Foad Satterfield for coming and sharing their lives and art with us. This was really special, especially on our anniversary. But I would also like to tell you or to share with you what they used to call in movie theaters years ago, the coming attractions. Okay, which means that next month on April 20th, we will be hosting Archana Horsting, who is here with us. And she is for those who don't know, a painter, co-founder, and former executive director of Kala Institute. And she will be sparring with DeWitt Chang, who is a photographer, critic, and curator. So don't miss it. If you are interested in presenting as an artist, or you know of someone who you really feel should be on the program, please let us know. And you can email me personally at Pamela Blotner, run together, @gmail.com. And let's see. Oh, yes. If you'd like to support the work we do, particularly this presentation, which will enable us to do a lot of different things like generous stipends to our artists. And so if you want to do that, please go to our website and click the donate button. And you will hear songs from heaven when you do that. Okay. Oh, yes. Then once you get there, select community outreach donations and choose artist exchange from the drop-down menu. So I think that's all that I have to say, except to thank all of you for coming. We produce this for the audience, for other artists. And certainly it was great to have it during COVID. And so it's communication. So thank you. Ms. Shelley?
All right. Thank you, Pamela. Yeah. Well, like Pamela said, we really are appreciative of Lulu Stanley's and Foad Satterfield's participation this evening and for this awesome turnout for our first anniversary. And like Pamela said, if you're interested in presenting as an artist for a future artist exchange event, then send an email to Pamela Blotner @gmail.com. And if you were moved by today's presentation and want to support the work that Gallery Route 1 does to inspire people to experience the world in new ways through art, and especially to support this program, then click on the link in the chat that I just dropped in. And you're going to look for community outreach donations. And there's a hard to find drop-down menu, and we're going to have to fix that. And you will select Artists Exchange so that you know it goes directly to support this program. And thanks again for coming, everyone. And we hope to see you at our next Artists Exchange on April 20th.
That's